Another way of creating really kind of personal and customized presentations for your portfolio might be to use Illustrator's 3D tools, like the example here. Let's have a look at achieving something like that. I'm in Illustrator here. I'm going to kind of make this from scratch. I'm going to make a document that is in pixels. 1600 by 1200 pixels, and make it in RGB color mode. Okay, so here's our workspace. We might just give ourselves a little bit more space. Okay, so we need to make a graphic first that will, I suppose, extrude. I think the term is revolve. So we'll make a flat vector and generate the three-dimensionality out of that. We're making a kind of a coffee cup, takeaway coffee cup mock-up. Very kind of stylized and graphic in nature. Alright, so I'll create that artwork with the pen tool. And I'm going to make half of the coffee cup, so a silhouette of the coffee cup, but only 50% of that. So I'm just going to be randomly improvising here. I might start with the bottom of the coffee cup. So this is the base of the coffee cup where the coffee is kind of held. So something like that. And that looks good to me. And we'll just go escape. And then we'll make a lid for that. So the lid might look something like this. And remember, it's a kind of a silhouette. Something like that. Oops, I think I've joined those 2 points together. I don't want that. I want those to be two separate shapes. So we've got our coffee cup and our coffee lid and our coffee cup. But we've only done half of it. Let's give each of these a bit of colour. I don't need to really have too much colour. The base is just going to be, I don't know, a little bit grey, paper colour. And the lid is going to be kind of a black plastic. Something like that. And while we're here, I'm going to create a background colour, which is going to be, I don't know, coffee colour. Will that do? That'll do. Send that to the back. And make this a little bigger to take up a bit more of the space. Alright, so that's our artwork. We can modify that in a minute. And to generate 3D artwork, we need to use a plugin, an effect, the 3D and materials, and I think we're looking for revolve. We'll just undo that because I remembered that we need to group these two objects together. So Command G. So we've still got the 3D materials tab open. I might just start from scratch there up to our plugins, and then we'll revolve that. Alright, so you can see that it's generated this kind of 3D element. We've got our 3D and materials panel, and this is certainly not going to be an extensive look at this, this effect, but a quick run through. Now, to change the kind of rotation of our object, we can click on this widget in the center and manipulate it around. First thing I'm going to do though is alter my graphics a bit, because I think it doesn't quite look like a coffee cup at this stage. So, and this is kind of interesting. Oops, I can just go into outline mode there. That's Command Y on the keyboard. I can manipulate my points and it'll update in that 3D rendering. So I'm just nudging across those points to make it a bit skinnier. That's looking closer to what I want. And the other thing is, I think I need a little bit more detail in the coffee cup, so I'm going to add in a couple of points into, oops, it's still doing its thing. I'm going to grab the Bezier tool and add a few more points in here. Probably would have been best if I'd have got this right from the start. You can see as I nudge those points across, it's updating my 3D model. It does certainly take a bit of extra computer RAM to do this 3D stuff, as you can see. Anyway, that's looking kind of like I want my coffee cup to look, just with that extra sort of detail on the rim there. We'll go back and select the whole object, and we've got our little widget again. I can manipulate it around in 3D space so to find the best possible view for it. I'm going to leave it at something like that. We've got our object properties over here, so we can sort of kind of change a few things. We don't have to revolve completely around the whole shape, although in this case I do want to do that all the way to 360. We can offset it so we can make it a bit fatter, I suppose, or wider. We can do the revolution from a different angle there, and we can manually rotate our model as well. Let's flick over to, and there's other methods of creating 3D objects. We're just going to look at revolve today. We'll head over to our materials, and over here we can add all sorts of different built-in materials, of which there's some pretty fun looking stuff there. So if I just click on any of those, I can create, fabrics and shiny objects and so forth, and they work quite well. You can also import your own from Substance. We want to add a graphic though, so I'm going to click over to the graphics palette and let's open up our graphics. I'm going to open the logos file from our assets that are on the desktop. So I've just got a bunch of logos we can play with, and oops, I think the coffee one is the most appropriate. So in our graphics tab, let's just drag that over and add that as an option, a graphics option. Go back over to our currently untitled file. Whoops, we might have to do that from the same file here. So I'm just going to paste that in and add it to this file. That's better. Move that out of the way. Now, with that added to the graphics panel here, I can drop it, drag it, and drop it onto my particular file. I need to have it selected. I might just double click it. That's cool, it's added it onto that surface, which is great. Now you can see that it's got a little bounding box, which means I can drag it around in space. Oops, we seem to have added it twice there. That's better. I can move it around the object and it kind of sticks to the surface, which is good. I can grab these handles and change the size of it as well. So I've added the branding to that model, which is kind of good. We'll go back and select the whole thing and might just offset it a little bit and rotate it around like so. Last thing we'll quickly look at is the lighting, and we can change from different kinds of lights. Got a diffuse light and a couple of other options. I'm going to stick with standard. Top left is good also. And we can change the kind of properties of that lighting by messing around with our with these property values here. We can also turn shadows on, which is interesting to give a kind of bit of pseudo-realism. We can add a shadow behind the object, or we can add it below the object. And that looks kind of good. I'll just change the rotation of this so that our shadow's behind there. And that's looking good, I reckon. Add a bit more softness to the light. I'm going to go back to the object rotation and just tinker with that a little bit. That's what I'm after. The Z axis. To make it look as if it's on a bit more of a tabletop. Could play around with that for ages and get it exactly as I wanted. Do just want to get the logo a little bit more in shot. Yeah, that's looking good. Now it's all looking a little hard edge at the moment. We can turn on this option here, which is the ray tracing for rendering, and that'll add quite a bit of time to the processing of this file. But it'll make the shadows and the way the light falls on the object look a lot more kind of natural. Fingers crossed. I'm pushing this computer pretty hard at the moment. So it did take a bit of a moment for my computer to render that ray trace. But this is how it's looking now, much more natural. And I've got that shine and refraction, and the shadows are looking a lot more natural. Still could do a bit of work getting the angle of this composition, positioning of this composition right, but you get the idea. Illustrator's 3D and material tools to customize your portfolio presentations.